The city outside our apartment pulsed with life, its distant horns and shimmering lights weaving into the comfortable hush of our little dining room in Chicago's Lincoln Park. I'd set the table for two, a bottle of wine breathing, the smell of homemade lasagna drifting from the oven. Adam, my husband, sat across from me, swirling his glass in lazy circles, the gold of the candlelight warming his sharp jawline. We'd both had long weeks, him with endless calls and reports for his tech firm, me juggling design clients and freelance gigs. These Friday dinners had become a ritual for us, a way to anchor ourselves to something gentle in the storm of city life. Adam was usually talkative, telling me about some new project or the latest office gossip, his stories animated, sometimes silly. That night, though, he seemed different, quieter, almost distracted, his phone buzzing face down at his elbow. I caught him checking it, fingers drumming, eyes flicking to the screen every few minutes. Still, I tried to keep things light. We joked about the neighbor's dog, the tragic state of the cubs, even the wild thunderstorm from the night before. It almost felt like old times, until Adam leaned back, exhaling like he'd been waiting for just the right moment. "By the way, babe," he said, almost too casually, "I'll be out of town next weekend. Corporate workshop in New York. Big deal. Mandatory. Everyone's going." He said it like an afterthought, but I saw the slight tightening of his mouth, the quick glance he gave me before focusing on his wine. I smiled automatically, pride swelling in my chest, because Adam's career really was taking off. Of course I wanted to support him, be the wife who packed his bags, who listened and cheered from the sidelines. "Do you need help packing?" I asked, grinning. Or maybe I could tag along if they're letting partners join this time. I wouldn't mind a weekend in Manhattan. The shift was instant, subtle, but unmistakable. Adam set his fork down, suddenly busy studying the edge of his plate. "It's strictly employees, babe." "Really? You wouldn't have fun." "I promise." He tried to laugh, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. He took a big swallow of wine, then changed the subject with a clumsy pivot, asking about my day, the weather, anything but the trip. For a moment, I let it go. But the words stuck like a sliver under my skin. "You wouldn't have fun." He knew me better than anyone. He knew I thrived at events, could work a room with a smile and a joke. We'd been to plenty of his work parties before. I was always included, never an outsider. Why was this different? We finished dinner in a haze of small talk. I tried to focus on dessert, but my thoughts spun. Adam cleared the plates, humming tunelessly, pretending nothing was amiss. I watched him, noticing little things I'd never thought twice about before, the way his shoulders seemed tight, how he kept glancing away when I spoke, the careful way he avoided my gaze. I brushed it off at first. Maybe I was tired. Maybe he really was just stressed about work. I wasn't the suspicious type. We'd built our marriage on trust, anchored ourselves in honesty and mutual support. But as I washed up, his words looped in my head. "You wouldn't have fun. You wouldn't have fun." Did he really believe that? Or was he hiding something he didn't want me to see? Later that night, Adam fell asleep almost instantly, as if he couldn't wait to escape the tension. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft drone of the city and the rhythmic breathing of the man I loved. My mind ran wild, flipping through every possible explanation, from the innocent to the absurd. Was it really just work? Was there someone new on his team? A new project? Or, my gut twisted, a secret? No. I refused to jump to conclusions. That wasn't me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted between us, as if a door had quietly, but deliberately, closed. The next morning, sunlight spilled into our kitchen. Adam made coffee, scrolled his phone with his thumb moving too fast, then set it face down on the counter. I watched, feeling a faint chill. He used to show me memes and headlines. Would share the smallest things. Now he seemed closed off, like a stranger living behind a paper-thin mask. Will it be mostly the same crew at the workshop? I tried, keeping my tone breezy. He barely looked up. Just the usual. All the tech talks, networking, you know. You'd be bored out of your mind. There it was again, the wall. I forced a smile, nodded, then started cataloguing the tiny details that suddenly felt off. The way he dodged specifics, how quickly he brushed past my questions, the slight edge in his voice that said, don't push. It would have been easy to let it go. I wanted to. But something inside me, call it intuition, call it stubbornness, refused to settle. I didn't know it yet, but this moment, this ordinary morning in our Chicago apartment, was the first loose thread. Once I started pulling, I wouldn't be able to stop. Adam left early for work that Monday, claiming there was a new client pitch he couldn't miss. I heard the apartment door close behind him and sat in the silence, staring at my half-drunk mug of coffee. Usually, his absence would mean an extra hour for me to catch up on emails or sketch out a new design, but my mind was restless. The memory of our dinner, his closed-off answers, and that strange nervous energy he couldn't hide, it all churned inside me like a storm waiting to break. I'm not the jealous type. Adam and I had always prided ourselves on being honest, on believing the best of each other. We'd survived the worst of our 20s by leaning in, by talking things out, by never letting doubts linger. But now, all my usual confidence felt like a thin coat of paint over something deeper, darker, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. My phone buzzed with a reminder about an overdue invoice. I pushed it aside and opened my laptop. Maybe I just needed answers. Simple, logical, benign. I typed in the name of Adam's company, Evo Tech Solutions New York workshop. He then added a spouse invite if for good measure. I half expected nothing, maybe a generic press release, but within seconds, I landed on their official event page. My heart thudded as I scrolled. There it was, in bold type, Annual Innovation Workshop, New York City, open registration. Beneath that, a glossy carousel of photos from last year's event, tables decorated in blue and silver, executives mingling, couples smiling for the camera. I paused on one image, a dinner banquet, partners and spouses invited. I recognized a few faces from Adam's stories, some with wives or husbands at their side. The itinerary clearly listed a Saturday night gala, all partners welcome. A cold unease seeped into my bones. Why lie? Why say it was employees only? Why say I'd be bored? For a moment I just stared at the screen, the cursor blinking. Maybe Adam just wanted space. Maybe he thought I'd really hate it. But that wasn't how he was. He loved showing me off, always said I made work events more fun. No, this was something else. Questions tumbled over one another. Was he ashamed of me? Hiding something? Or someone? Or was it just a stupid, unnecessary lie that meant nothing at all? But deep down, I knew. Little lies were rarely just little. I started searching through the rest of the site, scrolling through past guest lists, speaker lineups, even the RSVP portal. I saw the names of people Adam often mentioned from his department, several with +1s. Nowhere was there any mention of the employees only. Every detail contradicted what he told me. I pulled up my email, clicked to book flight, even reserved a last-minute seat on a Friday afternoon plane to New York. I did it on instinct, the kind that grows from years of trusting your gut even when your head pleads for calm. As the confirmation hit my inbox, I felt my pulse spike. I was doing this, quietly, without confrontation, without drama. If Adam had nothing to hide, he'd never need to know I was even there. If he did, well, I'd be ready. All day, I went through the motions, checking off work, running errands, meeting a friend for coffee. I acted normal, maybe even happier than usual. But inside, I was rehearsing 100 versions of how the weekend might unfold, most of them ending with me either catching Adam in a lie or feeling like a paranoid fool. That night, Adam was in a good mood. He cooked pasta, poured my favorite wine, told me about some new project at work. I let him talk, studying his face in the golden kitchen light. He didn't seem guilty. In fact, he seemed lighter than he had in weeks. Was that a good sign? Or was it relief at having gotten away with something? As we settled on the couch to watch a movie, he pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my hair. "You're quiet tonight," he murmured. "You okay?" I smiled up at him, feigning sleepiness. "Just tired. Long week." He nodded, then started the film, his attention drifting. I watched him instead, looking for cracks in his mask. All I saw was the man I loved, but the seed of doubt had already rooted deep. The week passed in a blur of anticipation and nerves. Every time Adam mentioned their workshop, I catalogued his words, looking for inconsistencies. He packed his suitcase 2 nights before his flight, fussing over shirts and ties. I offered to help, but he insisted he had it covered. Friday morning, I woke up before dawn, heart pounding. I had the jitters, an anxious cocktail of guilt, dread, and determination. Adam left early, suitcase in hand, pausing to kiss me goodbye at the door. "I'll text you when I land," he said with a smile. "Don't work too hard while I'm gone." I watched the door click shut. My own suitcase sat hidden in the back of my closet, packed the night before with an emerald dress and a pair of heels, just in case. Once Adam Zuber had disappeared down the block, I grabbed my bag and called a cab to a hair. The city outside the window blurred past as my mind raced. Was I overreacting? Or was this the beginning of the truth I needed to face? All I knew for sure was that I was finally done waiting for answers. By the time my plane touched down at LaGuardia, the late afternoon sun was slipping behind the Manhattan skyline. The cab ride into the city crawled along congested avenues, neon lights already flickering awake as evening descended. I'd been to New York plenty of times before, for design conferences, reunions, even one spontaneous girls' trip, but tonight every block felt different. It was like the city itself buzzed with the secret I was hunting. At the hotel, the doorman greeted me with professional warmth. I kept my sunglasses on, my heart thrumming with adrenaline as I wheeled my suitcase through the marble lobby. I'd made a reservation under my own name. No point hiding, I told myself. If Adam spotted me here, I could claim a surprise visit, a last-minute plan to enjoy the city while he was busy. But my real mission was simple, to see with my own eyes if my husband was telling the truth. I checked in, smiling at the clerk, who didn't even blink at a solo traveler. "The Innovation Workshop is in the West Conference Center," she offered. If you need directions, just follow the blue banners. I thanked her, barely hearing. My mind was already spinning with possibilities. I rode the elevator up to my room, unpacked methodically, and hung my dress in the closet. It looked out of place against the standard hotel hangers, a jewel-bright promise that tonight, at least, I would look and feel my best. By 6:30, I was ready. The emerald dress skimmed my figure, giving me the sort of confidence I needed. I applied lipstick with trembling fingers, took a deep breath, and tried to summon the version of myself Adam always said lit up any room. The one who could read a crowd in seconds, glide through small talk, catch subtle shifts in tone or mood. If something was off, I would know. I slipped into the elevator, heart pounding as the numbers ticked down to the lobby. In the mirrored doors, I caught my own reflection, a woman on a mission, determined and vulnerable all at once. The conference area was already bustling. Groups clustered around registration tables, laughter and the clink of glasses drifting from the pre-dinner mixer. I moved through the crowd, scanning faces. I recognized a few from the company website, Adam's boss, the charismatic VP, some junior engineers. But no sign of Adam. I lingered near the guest list, pretending to adjust my bag as I watched people sign in. My hands felt icy despite the heat of the room. Finally, I approached the check-in desk, voice steady. "Hi, could you check if Adam Carter is registered? He's my husband." The young woman smiled, scrolling on her tablet, then paused. "I'm sorry, There's no Adam Carter listed for this event. Are you sure he's with Evotech?" My pulse thundered in my ears. "Yes, I'm sure," I said quietly. "Maybe he registered late?" She checked again, shaking her head. "No, I don't see him. Sometimes people come as guests or under a different department. Maybe try asking inside." "Thanks," I managed. I turned away, legs suddenly unsteady. Inside the ballroom, people were settling at round tables. Programs listed the schedule: keynote, dinner, awards. Waiters flitted by with trays of wine and hors d'oeuvres. I walked slowly, scanning each table, each name card, searching for Adam. Nothing. Not even a placeholder. I felt invisible, floating through a scene that was both familiar and utterly foreign. I didn't belong, not as a guest, not as a wife, not even as a curious observer. Standing near the back, I dialed the only number I could think of, a co-worker of Adam's I'd met at a holiday party once, a friendly guy named Brian. He picked up after 2 rings, sounding surprised. "Hey, Claire. Everything okay?" I kept my tone light. "Hey Brian, quick question. Did Adam make it to the workshop? I haven't heard from him, and I thought he'd be at the gala tonight." A pause, a shuffle of background noise. "Oh, no, I thought he was taking a personal weekend. He mentioned something about a getaway, but not the company thing. Didn't he tell you?" My grip on the phone tightened. "Right, thanks. Probably just mixed signals. Have fun." I hung up, numb. My worst suspicion was settling into something cold and real. Adam wasn't here for work. He wasn't here at all. He'd chosen somewhere else, and maybe someone else, over honesty with me. I walked out of the conference center in a daze. The air outside was brisk and smelled of rain, sharp with the metallic tang of the city. I let myself drift down the sidewalk, clutching my purse as if it held answers. My phone buzzed with a text from Adam. I just got to the hotel. Long day. Will call you tomorrow. Love you. I stared at the words. There was nothing true about them. My hands shook as I typed a quick reply. Glad you arrived safe. Sleep well. Even that felt like a lie. I wandered aimlessly, letting the city swallow me for a while. Eventually, I returned to my hotel, heels echoing on the marble. I peeled off my dress, hung it back in the closet, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the skyline. I felt hollowed out, less angry than exhausted, less betrayed than heartbreakingly sad. I didn't have evidence, not yet. But my world had already shifted. The trust that once felt unbreakable was now full of holes. If I was going to confront Adam, I needed more than instinct. I needed proof. And I needed to know if I was strong enough to handle whatever truth waited for me on the other side. Sleep didn't come easy that night. I tossed and turned in my hotel room, sheets twisted around my legs, the city's glow seeping in through the blinds. My mind replayed every detail: Adam's careful words, the missing name on the guest list, Brian's startled voice on the phone. Somewhere below, horns blared and a siren wailed, a reminder that life went on outside my own private storm. By morning, the numbness had faded, replaced by something sharper. Determination. I'd spent years believing that facing the truth was always better than living with uncertainty. Now I clung to that idea like a lifeline. I made a list in my head: hotel charges, receipts, messages, timelines. If Adam wasn't at the workshop, where was he? If he lied about something so small, how deep did that lie run? I'd always trusted my gut, but now I needed facts. Over a hotel breakfast I barely touched, I began my investigation. First, I checked our shared credit card account. The app loaded slowly, taunting me with its spinning wheel. When it finally resolved, I scanned through the most recent charges. There it was, a transaction from the night before. A dinner for two at a high-end restaurant in Midtown. Not unusual, except Adam had claimed he'd be at a networking event that night, meals provided by the company. My heart pounded as I dug deeper. Another charge appeared, this time for a boutique hotel across town, not the conference center where the workshop was held. The booking was under Adam's name, for a king suite. My hands trembled as I took screenshots, emailing them to myself for safekeeping. I stared at the evidence, hoping for an innocent explanation. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he was meeting an old friend or had a surprise planned for us. But the facts kept stacking up, cold and unforgiving. There was no workshop, no late-night meetings, no company dinner. Just Adam, a hotel room, and a credit card trail he hadn't bothered to hide. A surge of anger pulsed through me, hot and unfamiliar. I wasn't a fool. I wasn't the naive wife waiting at home for answers that never came. If Adam was going to rewrite the truth of our marriage, I at least deserved a front row seat. I called his phone, half hoping he wouldn't answer. It rang and rang, then finally clicked to voicemail. I left no message, letting the silence speak for itself. Next, I sent a casual text. How's the workshop? Hope you're getting some rest after that long flight. He replied an hour later. Crazy busy. Barely time to eat. I'll call you later, promise. I stared at his words, fury simmering beneath my calm. I'd always believed that when love is real, you can feel its warmth even through the hardest truths. But now, the only thing I felt was cold resolve. It was time to confront the reality I'd been avoiding. The rest of the morning passed in a haze. I packed my things, checked out of the hotel, and caught a train back to the airport. The city outside the window blurred past, a kaleidoscope of strangers and stories I would never know. In that moment, my own story felt like it was splitting in two, before and after the lie. On the flight home, I wrote everything down. Every detail I could remember, every odd moment, every shred of evidence. By the time the plane landed in Chicago, I had a timeline, a map of Adam's deceit, charted out in credit card charges and half-truths. I arrived home to an apartment that felt different, as if the air itself was heavier. I set my bag down and stood in the center of the living room, listening to the quiet. For the first time, I realized how much energy I'd spent trying to hold us together. All the little accommodations, the way I'd bent myself into the shape Adam needed. I wasn't sure who I was without that constant effort. That night, I didn't wait for Adam to call. Instead, I called his mother, inviting her and the rest of his family to dinner on Sunday. Just a little get-together, I told her, keeping my tone light. She sounded surprised, but agreed. I hung up and made a list: what to cook, what to say, what evidence to lay out. I was done hiding from the truth. Adam had made his choices, and now I would make mine. I spent Saturday in a kind of trance, cleaning, organizing, preparing. I went through our paperwork, printed the screenshots, highlighted the hotel charges. With every new piece of evidence, I felt steadier, more certain. I wasn't afraid of what was coming. I was only afraid of what might happen if I stayed silent. By Sunday afternoon, the table was set, candles ready to be lit. The apartment was spotless, every surface shining. I wore a simple navy dress, hair pulled back, no makeup but for a swipe of mascara. I wanted to look strong, not angry, determined, not bitter. Adam walked in just before 6, carrying a bottle of wine, a forced smile on his lips. He glanced at the table, the empty seats, then back at me. "What's going on?" he asked, voice uncertain. I smiled, meeting his eyes without flinching. "Family dinner. I thought we could all use some time together." He hesitated, clearly thrown off balance. I could see the questions racing behind his eyes. Before he could say more, the doorbell rang. His mother, his sister, his brother-in-law, one by one, they filled our home, bringing laughter and warmth that felt almost normal. But underneath, I could sense Adam's nerves tightening with every passing minute. I waited, letting the tension build, letting him wonder what I was planning. Dinner passed in a blur, conversation light and careful. I answered questions, poured wine, smiled when required. Only after dessert, when plates were cleared and everyone was settled in the living room, did I excuse myself and return with the folder of evidence. I handed it to Adam without a word, my gaze steady, my hands steady too. "Open it," I said, and waited as the truth finally broke through the surface. The room went quiet the moment Adam took the folder. His fingers hesitated at the clasp. I could see him searching my face for some clue, some lifeline, anything to tell him this wasn't as serious as it felt. But I gave him nothing. I kept my back straight, my breathing slow and even. In the hush, the city outside faded away, until all I could hear was the faint tap of his wedding ring against the polished wood of the coffee table. He opened the folder. First, the receipts. The hotel. The restaurant. The date and time circled in red. Next, the credit card screenshots, each one a puzzle piece, together spelling out the truth. There was no workshop, not for Adam. Only a trail of lies, neat and irrefutable, stacked on our coffee table for all to see. I didn't speak. I let the evidence do the talking. Adam's mother and sister exchanged word glances, their conversation frozen, wine glasses poised in midair. No one knew what to say. Finally, Adam looked up. For a moment, his eyes flickered with anger. At me, at the situation, maybe at himself. He tried to recover, but his voice cracked. "What is this, Claire?" I kept my tone calm, almost gentle. "That's what I found when I tried to support you. When I wanted to believe you. That's the truth you didn't tell me." His jaw clenched. He glanced at his family, clearly hating that they were witnesses. "So you went through my stuff? You checked up on me? After you lied to me, yes. I had to. I trusted you, Adam. I wanted to believe the best of you. But you made that impossible." There was a long silence, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the city's distant sirens. Adam's mother finally found her voice. "Adam, honey, what is all this? You said you were working this weekend." He shifted in his seat, the practiced charm gone. "It's not what it looks like," he muttered. "It's complicated." I felt a wave of sadness, heavier than anger. "It's always complicated, isn't it?" I said softly. "But not this time. This time, it's simple. You lied, Adam. Over and over. And I deserve to know why." He looked away, running a hand through his hair. The mask of control he'd worn for years was slipping. "There's no one else," he said finally, desperate. I just needed space. Time to think. Things at work have been bad. I didn't want to drag you into it. But it was a lie. I could see it in the way his voice wavered, how his eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. His sister leaned forward, concern etched in her face. "Adam, just tell the truth. Whatever it is, it's better than this." For a moment, I almost pitied him. He looked so small, so much less than the man I'd married. I realized, in that instant, that I was no longer waiting for answers. I already had them. Was it worth it? I asked. My voice didn't shake. All the secrecy, the hiding, the stories. Was it really worth losing what we had? He slumped, as if the question deflated him. "I don't know," he whispered. Everything got so heavy. I messed up. I'm sorry." His mother reached for my hand, her own trembling. "Claire, I'm so sorry. We had no idea." I squeezed her fingers gently. "It's not your fault. Adam made his choices. Now I have to make mine." For the first time since the confrontation began, I felt a sense of release. The weight I'd been carrying, doubt, fear, disappointment, was sliding off my shoulders. I could finally see a way forward, even if it was a lonely road. Adam tried again, voice roar. "Can we talk? Just the two of us?" I shook my head. "Not tonight. I need space. Real space. And you need to tell your family the truth. All of it." He looked at me, realization dawning in his eyes. He'd lost control of the story. The truth was no longer his to hide or rewrite. I stood, smoothed my dress, and met the gaze of every person in the room. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry it had to be like this. But I can't pretend anymore. I won't. I stepped out onto the balcony, the autumn wind biting at my skin. For a long moment, I stood alone, looking out at the endless grid of city lights. Down below, cars moved along Clark Street, indifferent to the small heartbreaks happening high above. Inside, I could hear Adam's family speaking in low, urgent voices. I didn't care what they thought, about me, about Adam, about what came next. For the first time in years, I cared only about what was true. After a while, Adam appeared behind me, tentative. Claire, please. Let's talk. I'll tell you everything. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I turned to face him, calm and clear-eyed. You can't fix something you keep breaking, Adam. I don't need promises. I need honesty. And maybe I just need peace. He didn't argue. He just nodded, eyes rimmed with exhaustion and regret. I went inside, gathered my coat, and picked up my purse. I'll stay with Emily tonight, I told his mother quietly. Adam has the apartment. He needs to think. I need to heal. She hugged me, silent tears on her cheeks. His sister pressed a slip of paper into my palm, a number, an offer of support. I smiled, grateful and broken, and slipped out into the Chicago night. The air was cold, bracing. I felt it clear to my bones. But every step I took away from that apartment was a step toward something new, a life rebuilt on truth, not on hope alone. Emily's apartment was a few blocks south, tucked above a noisy coffee shop in Old Town. As soon as she opened the door and saw my face, she knew. No need for questions, no demands for details, just a long, wordless hug and a cup of chamomile tea pressed into my hands. The city's noise drifted in from the window, but here, in her tiny kitchen, everything was quiet and safe. I spent that night on her couch, half listening to the distant rattle of the L train, staring at the ceiling while exhaustion rolled through me in heavy waves. But sleep was a stranger. My mind replayed every conversation with Adam, every smile that now felt like a disguise. Was the workshop lie the first? Or just the only one I'd ever court? In the morning, Emily shuffled around the kitchen, making pancakes and offering gentle, practical advice. Don't make any decisions today, as she said, sliding a mug toward me. Just breathe. Just rest. Let yourself be angry. You deserve that much. I did as she suggested. For hours, I sat curled in her living room, wrapped in a blanket and my own swirling thoughts. I scrolled through old photos, our wedding in Grant Park, birthdays, summers at the lake house with Adam's family. Each image was a little wound, a glimpse of happiness I wasn't sure could ever return. How had it come to this? How had we, who once told each other everything, become strangers living parallel lives? By late afternoon, I found myself pacing. I checked my phone, a flurry of unread texts from Adam. Claire, please. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. Can we talk? I'll come wherever you are. Please. I can't lose you. For a long time, I didn't answer. I let his desperation echo unanswered, needing space to find my own voice before being drowned out by his apologies. That evening, Emily brought takeout home from our favorite Thai place and made us laugh about her latest disastrous Tinder date. We watched an old movie, and for a while, I let myself forget the wreckage of my marriage. I let myself exist as just Claire, not Adam's wife, not the woman who'd been lied to. But after Emily fell asleep, her soft breathing steady in the darkness, I couldn't resist checking Adam's messages again. He'd sent one more, shorter than the rest. I'm staying at my brother's tonight. Take whatever time you need. I'm sorry. It was relief, but also finality. The apartment, our home, was empty. I could go back if I wanted, but I wasn't sure I did. The next day, I called out sick from work. I wandered Lincoln Park, my breath fogging in the morning air. Watching couples with strollers, runners with dogs, students with their headphones. Everyone else's lives seemed so simple, their burdens invisible. I sat on a bench for a long time, letting the October sun warm my face, and tried to figure out what forgiveness might look like, if it was even possible. By the afternoon, I'd made up my mind. I would go home. Not to see Adam, not to patch things up or rehash old arguments, but to reclaim my own space, to gather what I needed to start whatever came next. When I entered our apartment, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Adam's jacket was gone from its hook, his favorite mug missing from the sink. It was the same place I'd left, yet everything felt changed, as if the walls themselves were bracing for what came next. I moved through the rooms with a new sense of ownership. This was my home, my safe place, even if the future was uncertain. I packed a weekend bag with clothes and a few keepsakes, then sat at the dining table and wrote Adam a letter. Not a plea, not an ultimatum, but a list of truths, what I knew, what I felt, what I needed. I wrote about the pain of betrayal, the suffocating weight of doubt. I wrote about trust, about the work it takes to build and how quickly it can crumble. And I wrote about love, not as a promise, but as a choice, one we both had to make, and one he had broken. I left the letter on his pillow, next to the space where I'd slept for so many years. I didn't know if he'd read it, or if he'd understand. But I knew I couldn't wait around for his answers anymore. That evening, I moved into a short-term rental, a bright, sunlit studio near the lake. It was small, but it was all mine. For the first time in years, I didn't have to consider anyone else's routines or opinions. I could leave dishes in the sink, play my favorite music loud, stay up reading until midnight. Freedom and loneliness, tangled together. I called my parents, told them everything. My mother cried softly. My father, always the steady one, simply said, "You did the right thing. Come home if you need to." The offer was comforting, but I needed to prove to myself that I could stand alone. Days passed. I started working again, pouring myself into new projects, letting the rhythm of deadlines and design meetings anchor me. I met Emily for coffee, joined a yoga class, walked the lakefront every morning, letting the cold wind clear my head. Adam texted sometimes, short messages. Thinking of you. Miss you. Please call. But I didn't answer, not yet. I was still finding out who I was without him. For the first time in a long time, I looked in the mirror and saw someone I recognized, someone brave, someone honest, someone who deserved the truth. October rolled into November, and Chicago turned colder, the wind whipping off Lake Michigan, rattling the windows of my new apartment. My life felt pared down to essentials: morning coffee, work, long walks in the park bundled in my thickest coat. The routines were simple, but they grounded me. I started to rediscover small joys, the city's golden trees, the taste of hot chocolate at the corner cafe, the weight of a good book in my hands. Still, every night, doubt crept in like a draft. I replayed the old questions. Had I been too harsh? Was it possible Adam's lies weren't about another woman, but about escaping his own failures? Did I even want to know? Forgiveness, I was learning, wasn't a single decision, but 1,000 tiny ones, made every day as you try to move forward. One grey Saturday, I woke to a message from Adam's mother. Claire, I hope you're well. Adam is struggling. We're all worried. He misses you. I know this isn't my place, but maybe you could talk? Even once? For a long time I stared at the phone, my heart twisting with empathy and frustration. She was kind, but her words made me feel responsible for Adam's pain, as if my boundaries were the problem. I texted back, a thank you for checking in. I need more time. I'm okay. Please tell him that. It was the truth, and it had to be enough. That afternoon, I got a notification from the credit card company. Another hotel charge, this time in the city, posted a few nights ago. For a moment, old anger threatened to flare. But I breathed, counted to 10, and let it pass. Adam's choices were his, not my responsibility. I decided to meet Emily for dinner. She listened patiently as I picked at my salad, letting the silence do its work. Are you going to see him? She finally asked. I shrugged. I don't know. Part of me wants to hear him out. The other part wants to burn every bridge. Is that wrong? She smiled sadly. It's not wrong to want closure. Just don't expect it to feel good. I nodded, letting her words settle in. I want the truth. Not excuses. Not promises. Just the real story, even if it hurts. She squeezed my hand. Then ask for it. You're strong enough. That night, back in my apartment, I wrote Adam a message. Short. Direct. Let's meet. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. The park by the Art Institute. His reply was instant. Thank you. I'll be there. Sunday dawned brittle and clear, the sky stretched thin above the city. I dressed simply, jeans, a warm sweater, boots. No makeup, no armor. I wanted to meet him as myself, nothing more, nothing less. I arrived first. The park was almost empty, leaves swirling along the pathways, a few joggers passing with headphones in their ears. I sat on a bench and watched the world, my heart hammering with every passing minute. Adam appeared right on time, hands jammed in the pockets of his coat, face gaunt with sleeplessness. He looked older, and for a moment, I almost pitied him. He hesitated, then sat beside me, leaving space between us. Thank you for meeting me, he said, voice hoarse. I nodded, searching his eyes for the man I once knew. You said you wanted to tell me the truth. I'm listening. He took a breath. I'm sorry, Claire. For all of it. The lies, the distance. You didn't deserve any of it. I stayed silent, waiting. He stared at his hands. There wasn't someone else. I promise you that. The hotel, the dinners, those were me running from everything. Work's been awful for a year. I'm scared I'll get laid off, scared I'll let you down. I couldn't admit it. The workshop was a lie because I didn't want you to see how badly I was failing. I thought if I disappeared, even for a weekend, I could breathe. He shook his head, shame flickering across his face. I know it sounds pathetic. But the more I lied, the worse it got. I never meant to hurt you, Claire. I was just lost. Tears pricked my eyes, unexpected and sharp. For so long, I'd imagined the worst, a secret affair, a second life. But this was messier, more ordinary. Fear, pride, weakness. I spoke quietly. Why didn't you just tell me? You always said we were a team. We faced everything together. He looked at me then, raw and broken. I was afraid you'd leave. That I wasn't enough. I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to comfort him. The lies are what broke us, Adam. Not your job. Not your fear. The secrets. He nodded, wiping his face with the back of his hand. I know. And I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I had to say it. I had to give you the truth, even if it's too late. For a long moment, we sat in silence. Around us, the city kept moving, cars honking, a siren in the distance, children laughing by the fountain. Life, indifferent to heartbreak. I stood, bracing myself against the cold. Thank you for being honest. I hope you find a way to forgive yourself, too. He didn't ask me to come back. He didn't beg. He just nodded, a final surrender. As I walked away, I felt strangely light, not because the pain was gone, but because I'd finally set down the weight of not knowing. Forgiveness might come someday. Trust might not. But I had the truth now, and that was enough.